Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, I'm going to be playing some MTG Arena Brawl and just kind of showing you how this deck works. So, as you probably saw by the title, thumbnail, everything, I'm going to be playing a Kinnan Brawl deck. So this deck is a Simic deck that really just wants to ramp, which is what Simic seems to like to do in Standard. And it's doing that by just increasing the value of any non-land mana generation. And I can do this on turn 2, and that generally leads to me being able to play really big spells really early because, oh, my Paradise Druid now taps for 2 mana, you know, everything just taps for more. So why don't we jump right into the gameplay? Alright, so jumping right into this, we are actually doing a mirror match. So it'll be me versus another Kinnan, and honestly, this hand looks pretty good. We have a Paradise Druid, turn 2, turn 3, we Kinnan, which will then leave us with 5 mana the next turn, and 6 if you technically count another land that we're going to get to play. Now here, I'm able to play Kinnan, tap Paradise Druid for Arcane Signet, and so if you have a lot of artifacts that generate you mana, you can, like, if they cost 2, or if you're able to reduce the cost of them, you can sometimes just play, like, artifact after artifact after artifact, because you can tap them the turn they come out. So here, I decide, oh, I'm going to play Biogenic Ooze. I don't even have to tap my Paradise Druid for that, and it just gives me a bunch of creatures out on the board to help defend against my opponent. It also is a mana sink, because Biogenic Ooze can spend 4 mana to create another Ooze. And then I also scry and see that there's a Hydra on top, which, due to the increased mana, can basically, like, turn 5, because I have not done any land ramp and I haven't missed a mana drop, or a land drop. I'm able to play a 7-8 turn 5, which actually isn't that crazy. I mean, I could have started with the turn 1 Gilded Goose, which then led into, like, Chromatic Lantern, so I could have ramped faster. I could have had a Nissa or something. But it definitely is interesting, and here we actually end up, I believe, getting timed out, and so that's kind of unfortunate. But my point was, and the reason why I left this in here, is to show you how the deck wants to function. It wants to function by just getting some ramp out, and then as soon as you get the ramp out, you're going to want to play big stuff, whether it's Hydra spells like Hydroid Krasis, or just bigger spells. And then I have things like Cavalier of Thorns in here because, well, technically it can ramp you, it can, it's a big creature, it's a reacher, it costs a decent amount, not a lot, but, and then it can also return things from your graveyard, so, you know, stuff like that works well. If you guys want to see the full deck list, there will be a link in the description down below where you can see the deck list for this video, and then there'll be a link below that where I talk about, or not where I talk about, but you'll be able to see all my decks that I've done throughout the whole Ikoria season, which is the release of Ikoria on MTG Arena to the release of Course at 2021 on MTG Arena. So, yep. And then here you'll notice that this is also kind of to show you how long MTG Arena takes to time someone out. They are just not doing anything, and this is actually at 2 times speed. So this is kind of sad. Now, Late Land of Abundance is a really good card in my deck because it does double all of my mana generators. So Paradise Druid would now tap for 3. It does not add anything to Arcane Signet, but it definitely is powerful. So we move into this next deck, and we're facing a Winota deck, which is generally going to be a really fast deck, which is kind of concerning. But, you know, this hand, I have a Gilded Goose, so that's my main reason, and I have the fastest intervention, which would allow me to counterspell Winota if I need to. Now, because it is a Brawl, they can't have the Agent of Treachery in their deck, so that removes a lot of the threat, but Winota, you know, Boros Winota can almost be faster, and so that's a little concerning for me. But, you know, next turn, I'm going to have 5 mana, and so I'll be able to play Nissa, which will then untap an island or something, and it just adds a ton of mana to my mana pool. Then I can play Thorn Mammoth, or the Cavalier of Thorns, or something, the next turn. Now, I decide, I'm waiting here, I'm like, do I hold up Thassa's Intervention, or do I play Nissa? And I decide that I'm going to play Nissa just because, hey, they're only going to get 1 Winota trigger if they do it next turn, and they are playing the Boros version. If they were playing the Jeskai version, I would be much more concerned because, hey, they could theoretically, they could just steal my stuff. But because they can't do that in their colors, I'm not super worried about it. So they decided to play Phoenix of Ash, which is probably a smart choice. Playing Winota, and you only have a 1/1 that you probably want to save to actually protect Winota, works well, and they're able to get 2 damage in on my Nissa, but honestly, I'm just doing this for her passive, and then I pull another great card, which is Mass Manipulation. So I'm using all this mana that I'm gaining from Kinnan to eventually I'm going to try and Mass Manipulation, stealing their stuff. It's the best removal spell for commanders because they can't save them unless they kill them, so now they're having to waste the kill spell or kill it in combat, and then yeah, so it's just overall this game is looking really good for me. Now I have a 5/6 Reacher to block the Phoenix of Ash, and at this point I'm like, do I leave mana open? Because theoretically I might be able to do something. And the reason I decided to untap a forest, which generally if you don't need the mana you'd rather untap an island because your forests are more valuable because they tap for more mana. But the reason I do that is so that I can create a food with Gilded Goose. At this point, if I can do that, then that really increases my mana. That increases it by 2 next turn. Yeah, unfortunately, and so then they decide to play Winota. So if they decide to attack with both, they will get 2 Winota triggers. So they do that. And you'll notice here that I'm able to just kill both of their creatures. And so they definitely got a proc because they're choosing who to attack. And they have Sky Knight Vanguard, which isn't that scary of a threat. I'm more worried about like a Haktos that hits the wrong number. But at this point, there's not too much that is really concerning. I mean, the 5/2 is kind of upsetting, but I'm able to block the 2/2 with my Cavalier of Thorns. I decide to chump block with the Goose, and I probably should have created a food in response, but I don't believe I do that. So that is a slight misplay, and then he gives his Phoenix of Ash protection from green, which I don't know if that was the right choice. I guess he didn't see it had reach. But here I'm like calculating, okay, how many things can I steal? Okay, I have exactly enough blue mana here, and then I wish I would have had my Goose. So what I decided to do is I start tapping it all out, and I'm like, okay, this, and then, oh, okay, I guess this works, and I decide to take the island because adding 2 mana doesn't do anything for me because you need to have double X, so I can steal 3 things. So I steal his Phoenix of Ash, the Sky Knight Vanguard, and the Winota. And what's kind of funny here is that I get Agent of Treachery, which is kind of what you want to do with Winota in like a Winota-based deck, and because I get Agent of Treachery, I start drawing tons of cards. And so my deck kind of just turns into their deck, which is very fun. I'm like, oh, I don't have that many humans, but then I do get Gadwick, who doesn't draw many cards, but it is an extra 3 damage, and I actually end up with enough damage to kill him, plus kill him again if he was at full health. So that's very interesting. So then we're also playing against a Niv Mizzet Reborn deck, and this hand is kind of meh. There's not enough mana ramp. My first ramp spell would be on turn 3, which isn't great. So I decided to mulligan, and this one is much better. We have Paradise Druid and the Pixie, and then we also have Cure, Best of Sea God, and Thorn Mammoth as big spells to be able to cast. So overall, it's looking really good. Next turn, I'll play Paradise Druid. Turn after that, play Kinnan, and then use Paradise Druid to cast the Pixie. So that is what I decided I'm going to do. Now that, of course, is reliant on what they do and what I do and all that, But that's my general plan in my head. And what I decided to do is instead of playing the Pixie, I decided to play Chromatic Lantern because it can't die as easily to a removal spell. Now they do have Thassa, which is really irritating with their commander because they're just going to be able to cycle and go through their deck really fast and just get all their best spells, which is kind of concerning. But I do have a Narset's Reversal in my hand in case they do get something like a Casualties of War, so then I can just send it back at them, destroying Niv Mizzet in a land. I believe, I don't know, I guess if they chose Destroy Target Artifact, I think I would still have to choose Chromatic Lantern. But what I decided to do is I decided to play Cure, Best of Sea Gods, because I figure my best bet is to steal their commander, because at this point they can already replay their commander if I kill them, if they have 1 more land, which they probably do. So at this point I'm like, oh, killing doesn't really work that great, because I could have Thorn Mammoth and traded, and they get Deputy of Detention, which they get rid of my Cure, Best of Sea Gods, which is both good and bad. It's bad because it's going to take longer to get rid of that, but then I'm able to Narset's Reversal their Tyrant Scorn, getting back my Cure, Best of Sea Gods, and getting another 8/8. So at this point, I'm actually threatening a lot of damage. I'm threatening lethal if they don't have blockers, and then they concede after realizing that they can't really do anything, and so I would win. Then our last game here today, we have Nethroy, and this hand looks really good. Now, it is missing blue, but Gilded Goose and Ilson-Cariad can both generate blue, so this hand is very rampy. It has Stonecoil Serpent, which can just be as big as I need it to be, and their deck is clearly multicolored, so that also has some advantage there. I also have protection in the form of Uro and, Whirlwind Denial and Unsummon, so this hand is looking really good. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to use the Goose in order to, or not the Goose, I'm able to use Ilson-Cariad, to do that, and then I'm able to use the Goose to play Chromatic Lantern, which then taps for a bunch of mana, and honestly, I probably should have Uro'd, but I think I was trying to keep up the mana for a Whirlwind Denial, and at this point, I can play Agent of Treachery on turn, this is either turn 3 or 4, and so that is insane. Like, in standard, you should not be able to do this. I know this is technically Brawl, but it is the standard card pool. Now, they decided to Divine Arrow my creature, and I'm like, do I unsummon it, or do I Whirlwind Denial? Whirlwind Denial is very powerful because I can stop a bunch of triggered abilities, but I decided I'm going to Whirlwind Denial it, and they concede, which generally is how a lot of these games actually went, because I only showed you some of the better games, and I just thought I'd end with that to show you that a lot of the time, especially because Brawler's Guild Hall is free right now, no one feels like they put any investment into it. If they're just like, I don't want to play this game, they just concede, so it's kind of a nice way to get wins, but you shouldn't be that person, although I did really enjoy the deck. You get to just ramp into a bunch of big spells. I think it's probably one of the better commanders from Ikoria, although there were a ton of them, so that is still yet to be seen. Either way, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.